everybody. Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Deplorable Knitter, and this is Ann Pinkova, and we're politically incorrect knitters. And if you can't tell, we had slight technical difficulties this morning. I had to switch my setup and spilled a cup of coffee on her setup.
Everywhere.
So we're a little bit late. We're a little bit flustered, but we're here. So good morning. Thanks for coming. It's been a long week for me. Anybody who follows me on Instagram probably heard I have shingles. So I dragged my body out of bed and put on makeup just for you all this morning because I'd really rather be sleeping right now, especially because my kids are at Grandma and Grandpa's house. But, it is what it is. So what about you? What's new this week, Anne?
Well, new for me this week is woohoo, South Dakota in winter. Various sub-zero temperatures, and my car, which is a common thing in winter that my car doesn't want to start. But this is a new car that doesn't want to start. So, had to get jumped twice yesterday. So just fighting that up and down and everything else. So
that sounds frustrating for sure. Yeah. It got real cold here. Like today it's 15 with like a negative feeling wind chill, and yesterday it was the same. But so we've been talking about Neil and his new Blocked magazine that's going to come out at the end of the month. And because I was sick and everything, I was supposed to write an article for it. I was supposed to design a pattern, and Neil said, "Hey, you've got a lot going on. Just like chill." And me being me, I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And then I went and designed a pattern for his thing. And this ties into how cold it's been. That's what made me think of it. It's a stranded knit cowl made with chunky yarn. So like it's super, super thick, and it's made to be tall and tight so that when the wind is blowing your face off, you don't care. So that's going to be the pattern in the Blocked magazine. And just as a side note, my mom and I went to Hobby Lobby yesterday because we can. And this hand-dyed, usually their hand-dyed is $15 a skein. This one was on clearance for $3.49. So I bought it. I'm like, "Mom, I don't even care if I like the colors because for $3.49 for hand-dyed yarn, I'm in." So
that's true.
Yeah. And it turned into this fabulous cowl. So that's something to look for in the Blocked magazine that's coming out at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And seriously, it is so freaking warm. Like, I'm totally going to wear it because I have to go pick up my kids later. I'll be wearing that.
Also, seeing that it is your new pattern, that does qualify for the Chicken Lady 5 Arts Make-Along, of which we are featured.
Exactly. Yes. And I was going to say, Chicken Lady has some really nice bulky yarns too. So make sure you check them out. And you can get 20% off using our code PIK January 20.
Yes.
So that's 20% off your order using her code. And if you use one of our patterns and her yarn, you get extra entries. So it's like a win-win-win all the way around.
Right? Yep. That's right. So she's doing a big old giveaway. And and you have a giveaway that ended this past week.
Yes. So everybody who entered the yarn giveaway I was doing with the copy of Cody Schlegel's Odyssey Tale, it had a scanning yarn and some stitch markers. That ended. Fiat Fiber Arts won. So congratulations to her. That got shipped earlier this week. My dad did it, so I don't have specifics on it because I was, as I mentioned, in bed. But it should be there now or soon for her. So
right, that's out.
It happened. It was awesome. And next month, we're going to do another giveaway. We've been working a lot with Cody. Excellent author, excellent unwoke book. So I saw somebody commented on my post that they decided to give the book to their son, I think, who is terribly woke. And so it was her little way of like, here, have this. It's, someone that's on our side, even though, and he was really enjoying it. So I guess that was fun.
Book for everyone.
It's been so that happened, and that's Cody's book, and you can find him on Amazon, Odyssey Tale, in case you're interested, because it's an excellent book. And I think that we will be doing another one. What Anne's planning next month's giveaway, but there will be a copy of the book in with that too. So
Yes.
another chance to win.
Yep, I have to get it all ordered in and everything. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. So what else? Did you knit this week?
I did knit this week.
Cool.
I finished the back of the one sweater. Here, there we go. So yeah.
People were asking, who's that for? It's for your mama, right?
It is, yes. She who loves my sweaters best. But anyways, it is lovely. And I don't know, it's been a long time since I've done a real complicated sweater. Like, basically every bit is a pattern, and getting into the whole there we go. Getting into the whole rhythm of cables and everything is really nice.
That's cool.
But yeah, and then I cast on the front, which will look the same as the back. So
nice. If you guys follow me on Instagram, there's a picture of a little baby sweater I whipped up in a day on my page, because my stepmom's niece and nephew are having a baby girl. So I got out the needles and some pretty girly yarn and made a tiny sweater, because my kids are too big for tiny sweaters now. So it was fun to do.
It's really cute.
It did turn out nice. But little girls, you can crochet like 4 flowers and put them on, and everybody's like, oh my God, that's so cute. And it's like, yeah, that took me like a second, but good.
That is cute though. So
it makes it. It does. Yeah. So are you knitting anything else? You just working on the mama sweater?
Did that, and the comfort fade cardigan. I've put sleeves on it, but it looks the same as, here we go. Focus. There we go. It looks the same as it did last week, except the arms are pinned behind their back because I'm doing them 2 at a time. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you're working on sweaters.
Yes.
What's wrong with you?
I love sweaters. I love sweaters almost as much as I love beanies, which I have stacks of. But yeah, it's what I do. And anyways, people love sweaters. Like it's a big to do, but I don't know. It's just the Mrs. Weasley instinct I have, I guess.
That's funny. Yeah, so another thing I have going on. I talked about this guy last week. My heart season hat. My mom is working on making the cowl version of it, and the pattern is going to my tech editor this weekend. Okay. So I called her last night and I said, hey, I haven't talked to you in like 3 weeks, so I'm going to send you 3 patterns this week. And she's like, all right, good, thanks.
Thanks, man.
Lucky for me, she's like, okay, just tell me when you send them. I'm like, oh my God, because I don't plan well. I know a lot of tech editors are like, you need to, schedule a time slot and listen. Me, I'm like, hey, it's me. And she's like, okay, send it over.
Well, even which is why I grabbed this, because I did submit the reclaim hat to Neil this week. And I'm like, oh, wait, how I said I'd give it to you a week ago? Here it is now, or over a week ago. I'm really bad. But anyways, I'm like, okay, hope it's everything you need. I'm not very good at this.
Well, lucky for me, I have my own pool of testers. So by the time it goes to Neil, it's going to be test and it's going to be tech edited. So all he has to do is format it however he chooses for the magazine and move on. So at least that's easy enough. But so that's the knitting. And yesterday, my mom and I, so we took my girls to stay over at my dad and my stepmom's house. And my dad lives 40 minutes away. So we drove up to the city and we met in the Hobby Lobby parking lot, and we gave him my girls, and then my mom and I went shopping in Hobby Lobby, and it was so much fun. But while we were there, in New York State, the mask mandate came back in December. And my county's not enforcing it, but this was another county that is enforcing it. So my mom and I went in without our masks on, and we were like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? And the store manager walked by us and didn't say anything, and like 7 employees said hi to us. And we were like, fine, we're good. So we shopped and we had a great time. We had like the best time. I love shopping with my kids, but I love when they're not there also. So it was me and my mom, and we were having a great time. And we were checking out, and there's some Karen behind us bitching about us not having masks on. Meanwhile, the cashier and the door greeter and everybody is just talking to us and fine. And it's turned into like such a thing. My having a mask on has no impact on you guys at all. It just doesn't. But, and if you're going to get it, you're going to get it. I'm pretty sure my 6-year-old had the new variant because all week long they've been coughing with this really, really awful croup sounding cough. And if you have a kid that has had croup, you know the sounds. It's real barky and real. And I kept going, it's so weird though, because they don't have the part with croup when they breathe in, you can hear it, and then they have that cough. Mm-hmm. But they didn't have the breathing part. And I'm like, that's so weird. And then I just read an article yesterday that said, hey, they're finding that if kids get Omicron, that they will get croup. And so how about that?
Fun.
Yeah. So there you go. If you're going to get it, you're going to get it. My kid hasn't been anywhere. We haven't been anywhere, so they still got it. Whatever. Move on.
I know. And I know about you, but it's like everyone around is sick, and not necessarily of COVID, but, you know, just like hacking and sneezing, and there's a stomach flu going around here. And I'm like, ooh, it's like Omicron, stomach flu.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'd rather get Omicron, honestly. I'd rather have a cold than a stomach bug any day of the week, especially when you have kids. Oh, my God. Anyway.
Yeah, just the...
I hate it when my kids are sick. I mean...
Like, oh, gosh.
I think that's normal. Most parents don't want their kids to be sick, but the stomach flu is a special kind of hell that most parents, you know, really don't want. But yeah, it just kills me. I mean, I'm sure that woman that was complaining about us was shotted and boosted and had her mask on. So what's the difference? What is the difference? Your cloth mask isn't going to save you. They've said that. So anyway, I'm not supposed to talk about this subject. Sorry.
That's all right. I was watching an interview this past week. I believe the man's name is Ed West. Anyways, it was Mark Stein has been on GB News all week, and they were talking about this guy has a specific kind of narrative that he explains things in, and that you have high beliefs and low beliefs. Well, low beliefs are what the rednecks out in the country believe, and that's the sort of, you know, Republican. But currently, the high beliefs are liberal. I care about people, and I'll, you know, basically, you know, what the TV says I'll do. That's, you know, and they were talking about that in England specifically, but I think it also applies to America, that there was a poll in England right before Christmas saying, should there be lockdown for Omicron? And it was 51% of people. You know, it's like, oh, 51% of people say cancel Christmas. This is, and I mean, you know, we've seen it before in America where polls are skewed for different areas. But even so, that if you can have any poll and 51% say it's okay to cancel Christmas, and they were discussing the reasons why about it too, why that might be, that the sort of, you know, follow the science crowd and everything, and what, like, they don't match up together, the different ordinances and mandates and everything else. Like in Wales right now, you cannot work in an office, but you can go to the pub. So, I mean, that's probably a compromise that a lot of Welsh people can agree on, but it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. So, but anyways, with the high beliefs and low beliefs, sorry. But I was thinking that it's, you know, they said that it's the wartime spirit that everyone can get up and do something, but it's the combination of belonging and in the group, and I'm doing something for the greater good, and total slacktivism. That you have, that you as a part of being a good person is doing the least possible. You get the boost whenever somebody says it, and you wear a mask when in public and then you stay home and don't go to the office. That is not the biggest human struggle that there's ever been. That it's a lot of, I don't know, that there's a lot of like emotional, how do I say, staying at home alone all the time is a very difficult emotionally, but the actual actions that you are doing are not grand in the struggle for life. So it's kind of a back and forth.
Right. I don't, everything is so arbitrary though. It just, there's no, so why can you go to the pub but not work? I mean, I think that if I'm sitting at a desk, I'm less likely to get COVID than if I'm sitting at the pub.
You know, like I
Unless,
said, without logic.
unless you're the person that was, so my husband and I went out to breakfast this morning and we went out to dinner last night. We are living high because the kids were gone.
Whoa.
And last night at the dinner, we went to the Mexican restaurant because my kids don't like Mexican and I really love it. And so instead of hearing them complain about it, we just go when they're not around. It's
Right.
very much better. But the table next to us had their masks on while they were sitting at the table looking at their menus and stuff. Like, what fun is any of this? Like, what's the point of going out if you're that scared? Like, I just, sorry.
Well, and that's the thing too, that, you know, that they're talking about a rise in teenagers who, like, that they want to wear the mask. Well, part of it is insecurity. And I mean, not just, you know, acne that comes from wearing a lot, because when I had to wear it constantly, that was a huge thing. But having that, it is, you're getting people used to a societal norm that it's weird without it, that people will wear the mask even if they don't have to. At this point, I'd be like, who's bothering? Because we all stopped. Oh, but we all have to wear it again. And it doesn't matter now that you said, you know, the lady on CNN who said that, yeah, cloth masks are totally useless. Well, again, she was a doctor and it's on CNN. Follow the science. Nothing.
I don't know. It's all just nonsense. But what happened in my county is once they got rid of the first mandate in New York, everybody was like, screw y'all guys, we're not doing it again. But the county that I was in yesterday, where everybody was still wearing them, it's a more liberal county. It's closer to the city. See, I'm closer to I'm out in the country. So, you know, we're those redneck bumpkins that don't know any better. But it's just, I don't know. The whole thing is crazy. But this woman was complaining to her cashier yesterday. And what's that poor cashier going to do? That little girl, it's her after school job. You know, it's like 4:00 in the afternoon. She looks like she's about 12. What is she going to do? Honestly, she just, it just kills me. Anyway.
Right. And I don't know, it's the Mark Stein line again, that all tyranny is capricious. Well, it's like, well, we have these awful rules. Well, if no one enforces them, it's okay until one person complains, or until one manager is the jerk, or until, you know, down the line.
But seriously, your 12-year-old cashier does not care if I'm wearing a mask. She doesn't want to be there anyway, so whatever, move on.
And also to bring up one of the comments, legend in the chat, Maria Tuscan says, if you're a traveling nurse, you don't need the jab. And presumably, if you're a nurse in a hospital, you do.
Wow. That's something, I mean, I think here in New York, don't know about traveling nurses, but I know home health care has to have it. So I don't know if that's everywhere or not, but still,
Right.
Dude, nonsense. I'm so tired of it. And then I go out with my kids, right? And because I don't mask, I also don't make my kids mask, which terrible, I know. But
no, it is bad.
My kids are like, Mom, why are all of these other kids wearing masks? And I say, well, their parents are scared. I said, we're not scared. We know where we stand. And that's the other thing. I feel like it's this the religion of woke, religion of science, religion of, I got faith in other stuff. So I guess if it's that bad, I know what's going to happen. So I'm okay. Like, I don't wish that to happen to myself or my family. Obviously, I want to live a long and happy life with them. But I'm not going to live it in fear. What is the purpose?
Right. I mean, not for everyone, but there's a sort of lack of, again, the phrase, lack of transcendent meaning that there's not. It's like, I want something big to be a part of. It's like, so you sort of latch on to this, again, sort of pseudo wartime spirit COVID thing that what I'm doing is for the greater good. I'm just like, you're just going around in a circle by yourself. This isn't helping anyone.
No. So in the chat, there were a couple questions. Somebody asked if we talked about the person who had her son in the trunk of the car. I only heard that much of the story, so I don't know why he was in the trunk of the car. I think she got arrested for child abuse or something, but I don't have any specifics. And then the tennis player in Australia, I only have heard the headlines of that also. So Anne, what do you know?
Here, I'm going to bring that one up because I'm sorry that I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but it's a Serbian tennis player. And everything was fine. Paperwork was good. He comes to Australia. They suddenly deny his visa entry with nothing else. And they've also done that to a Czech ladies tennis player. She had already played one of the pre-matches, and they're like, no. Sorry, that they're throwing her in quarantine. And I've heard, and there's protests in Australia too, that there is a huge crowd outside where this guy's being kept, and people are protesting in the driving rain. But yeah, it's a wild story. But also that people are like, oh, well, they're just really cautious in Australia. And I'm like, yeah, but
so they got in, right? So because my brother told me the story yesterday. I think he was talking specifically about the female player, but whatever. They got in, they don't have a COVID vaccine, and now they're like confiscated their passport and they can't leave their hotel. Isn't that more or less what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tara also points out that he's the number one tennis player in the world.
Well, that doesn't matter because maybe he wants to continue to be the number one tennis player in the world, which is why he hasn't gotten the shot yet.
Yeah. Maybe he's looking at all those other athletes and the sun collapses and going, what? Like, no.
Yeah, no, I'm not interested, right?
The sudden medical attacks in young men that it's like, oh, those normal heart pains that young people have in winter. It's just normal. But anyways, that you have this going on right now. And I don't know, lost my thought, man. But it's really awful what's happening in Australia. And it is that Neil Oliver said that we're in an abusive relationship with our government. That it's if you were like, oh, well, my next door neighbor, she's just really cautious. Here we go. Tara is doing our live reporting. Good for you, Tara.
Yeah, thanks, Tara.
No, that you have these parents and they're like, oh, well, the parents are really cautious and they never let the children out of the house, not even their room without permission. And you're like, oh, well, they just don't want them to get hurt. I'm like, that would be abusive. You'd be like, you have some serious issues. And also,
okay, yeah.
Also? No, I was going to say also, COVID's just sweeping through Australia. So there's vaccines.
And they have all the rules and they have they're in penal colonies if you're not in vaccinated and you're not following the rules. So what the heck? But the people who have kids, who the kids have gotten COVID and they forced the child to quarantine on their own, that is abusive. Your child is sick and you are not taking care of them. You are making them stay in their room by themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but what?
That was a story out of Canada, and luckily they had that reversed. But one of the schools were like, no, your child needs to be in their room 2 weeks by themselves. And a mother tweeted out, she's like, oh, well, my child is sobbing on the other side of the door, but, what can we do? It's like, well, I feel so badly, but I can't break quarantine. I'm like, go to your kid.
There is nothing in the world. Okay. On occasion, I will allow my child to sob in their room when they've done something wrong and I've sent them there to think about what they've done wrong.
Not habitually.
My child is, no, but this is oh, you punched your sibling in the face? Okay, well, you need to go in your room. I'm sorry,
Right.
you're crying. But no, if my kid is sick, you know where my kids sleep when they're sick, honestly? I kick my husband out of the bed and I let them sleep next to me because then I can sleep and I can be right there if they need me.
Mm-hmm.
I am not so scared of a virus that I am going to be like, nope, go in your room, be by yourself. It's just never going to happen. And the people who do that to their kids, serious issues. Sorry, but it's true.
Right. And because like I said, lots of people I know are sick, but if at any point someone tests positive for COVID, that's a disturbance for everybody. That is a sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was reading a comment, and the reason the kid was in the trunk was because he had tested positive for COVID, and that's how they were quarantining him.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, but what?
I know, for your safety.
Oh my God. If people from 100 years ago saw us now, they would just, I don't think they would even know what to do with themselves. I feel like, what the heck is wrong with these people?
I don't know. And the whole attitude, I mean, with the kid in the trunk and the throwing kids in their rooms and masking your kid to the hilt, that it is very much an adult coming before child mentality.
Yeah.
That the child's kind of just like accessory. That it's like, oh no, it's the child that we're worried about spreading the disease among us. That the child has to be vaccinated to make the rest of us safe. When the risk factors.
It's all crap. And my 6-year-old has been saying to me lately, Mommy, I love you more than you love me. And I just keep saying there's no way in the world that would ever be true. But, they don't understand. And that's the problem. These parents are worried more about themselves than they are about their children. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you could tell me to do that I would be like, oh, sorry, go in your room for 2 weeks. I'll feed you through the door.
Yeah.
Like, it's just freaking nonsense. I just don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Therese. Therese adding, adults prefer children in public schools.
Absolutely. Dude, I saw articles this week about kids wearing masks. The kid must have had a cold sore, right? Like, you get a cold sore, whatever. Because of wearing a mask all day, it had traveled all the way down, like wherever the mask had been, it was like a cold sore. Like, what is wrong with these parents that you are allowing that to happen? What is wrong with you parents? That's what it comes down to. Oh my God. We homeschool because we don't want our kids in masks all day. That's a choice we made. If my kid was sick and that was happening to them, I would figure out how to make them not have to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm privileged and I get to stay home with my kids, but I also work 3 jobs, and so whatever. You make it work if you want to. Sorry, now I'm mad. So,
in other time to be mad news subjects, things that have be genuinely concerned, and is that the memorial of the most horrible day to ever happen, ever, January 6th.
Worst thing ever.
Worst thing ever. We've never been this upset.
I mean, I heard that it was compared to Pearl Harbor and 9/11.
Yeah. And not just by actresses by Bette Midler. No. Our very own charming Kamala Harris that
she makes my brain hurt so bad. So, okay, so I've been sick all week, and honestly, my life has consisted of trying to sleep as much as possible and homeschool my kids. So me and news have not even come into contact at all. So I'm talking just my own personal opinions because I got nothing real. But how can you even pretend that those are on the same level? Even the Black Lives Matter protests had more death and destruction associated with them than the January 6th thing. What?
No. And I think it was very interesting. It was a lady on Instagram who is a recognizable children's book illustrator. Like if you saw her work, you know exactly who it is. But she had a picture this week of a flag at half-mast for January 6th, specifically for Brian Sicknick. And I'm like, he didn't die on the 6th. He died, after of a medical attack. And it's like, well, I was brought on, like he suffered so much trauma on the day that it was brought on by. And I'm like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, medical speculation. People saying January 6th, 5 people died. 1 person died on site during the protest because of the non-speculative reason of being shot in the neck.
Yeah. And she was not an officer. She was a protester, because I saw that our fearless leader erroneously mentioned that officers lost their lives that day. I'm pretty sure a couple of them were actually suicided, from what I understand, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's more medical speculation. But yes, we have, again, count 1 woman, Air Force veteran, unarmed, shot in the neck. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ashley Babbitt. You have 4 other people. 1 died of a medical overdose, and other 3 official cause given various medical issues.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the original report for Brian Sicknick is that he was clobbered in the head with like a fire extinguisher or something, which did not happen.
Are you sure? So,
pretty dang sure.
I think I sent it to you this morning because my husband and I were at breakfast and I found this info thing that was tweets of talking about how January 6th was the worst thing to ever happen. And then talking about how nobody has actually been prosecuted, charged, anything, just being held. And that the reason they're doing it, and I never, see, I'm so simple sometimes. It never even crossed my mind. They're making this into such a big freaking deal so that they can make it so Trump can't run again next time.
No, totally.
I never thought of that.
No, well, definitely. And also to disenfranchise because, just like the crap rivalry poll, except worse, because it's Biden and he's got his serious voice on. And he's saying about how basically that Trump is evil and divisive and it's all about him and he hates democracy. Therefore, if you support Trump, you hate democracy and you're un-American. Therefore, except unless, of course, you're the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. And then if you have the phone, your ringtone that's proud to be an American, people say that he's probably a white supremacist. Again, you're un-American if you love Trump, but also who is flying the flags. And if you fly the flag, you're awful. That it's a total, but also that you have the president of the United States saying those evil people, those Trump supporters, and that's half the nation. That is some seriously creepy crap.
It is. I mean, although if you take anything that he says with more than a grain of salt, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he did wish us a happy 2020 after all. So, I don't know, man.
It's true, but like I said, the children's book illustration lady and I put in the comments that Brian Sicknick didn't die that day, but all the other comments are from very respectable, normally middle-aged women who are doing broken heart emojis. Okay, yeah. And these ladies do not know what happened. And that's part of the thing, though, that, the trauma of the day. Have you seen the footage of the day? And, and they're like, oh, well, when they first came out, the photos of, people climbing up the walls or somebody climbing in the house itself. And it's like, these are, when you zoom out from the climbing up the walls photo, you realize that there are steps up the side. Like there's no wall that you're climbing. It's ridiculous. but also the removing of the barriers to everything else. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene did a little press conference that was very good about all of it. But yeah, and then the conditions of, the protesters, and again, you can go back and forth. There was fighting in the Capitol. It wasn't like most of it was just walking through the velvet lines. A lot
I
of people
know.
who didn't seem to know where they were, but there was also fighting in the Capitol. There was also some really weird footage of cops yelling at the people, and then they're fighting at the Capitol. But again, it is impossible to get through. Not impossible. You can see footage, you can see what's going on, but having a very clear image of what happened that day is extremely difficult when this is the worst day ever. I can't believe it. Subversion of democracy. Those people were just trying to stop what the people's voice. We need federal voting because of this. Anyways, that all of these different narratives are evil Republicans don't want your voice to be heard. You have to trust us instead. And democracy is only when we win, which is another really great thing, because after all, when Trump won in 2016, it was all Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's outrageous.
Sorry. But that's the thing that gets me most is the people who were on the other side. They're going, oh, it's a election result and everybody should respect it and blah, blah, blah. What did we hear the entire time that Trump was in office? Russia collusion, Russia collusion. Oh, he's not the real president, blah, blah, blah. So we say, hey, there's actually some real inaccuracies. We can point them out to you. Oh, no, you're just denying.
Right, and that's part of the thing.
What kind of world is this?
Right, it's like, well, you're just saying that when your guy doesn't win, that's when it's wrong. And it's like the record fewest counties with record most votes.
Yeah. Never mind those places that had more registered voters and more votes cast than people that live there, because that's nothing. It's fine.
This is
don't look at this.
Most popular, most safe and secure.
I got to tell you, I don't know if it's because I'm sick or if because of what we're talking about, but my head is killing me. The stuff I don't know. Maybe it's those common sense skills that I have that just, they're too hard. They don't understand. So because of all this nonsense that's going on, this is total random, nothing to do with that. I bought my kids the Tuttle Twins books. And okay, I'm glad you know what they are. Anybody in my life that I told about it, they're like, what's that? So I bought the Tuttle Twins, which is like, they teach about the Constitution and law and entrepreneurship. And I believe the guy who writes them is actually a libertarian, but it's like very like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's what you need to know. And I'm like, thank God, because I know all the stuff, but my 8-year-old's really into talking about politics. They've decided that they're going to be president someday. And I'm like, that's fine. Just,
okay, kiddos.
Whatever works for you, I'll support you. But man, but here's a good way to get them into, they're ready to be president. We're going to read the Tuttle Twins and learn about real life stuff as opposed to just this made up crap that everybody talks about. So,
right.
You've never heard of those books? Yeah, they're written for kids. What age are they? I think they have some for like teenagers, and the ones that I got are probably for like 2nd through 5th grade, kind of, or middle school, upper elementary through middle school. They're written to teach kids about like common sense, normal. And there's 2 twins, a boy and a girl, and so it's an adventure, and they are learning. And I haven't actually opened them and read any yet, but when I get better.
Like I said, I haven't read them, and they're a fairly new thing, and I don't have any kids to like give these to, but they're very well reviewed from what I see.
Yeah. And I know that they have like board books for younger kids, like to start them off on the right foot. And then they have some that are geared towards older kids, but the ones that are most popular are the ones I got, which are, elementary, middle school age kids. And you know, it's the kind of thing, if your kid's older, you give it to them and they can read it. But obviously my kids are small, so I will be reading them to them, and then we'll be talking about it. And then the thing I got has a teacher guide, and it has worksheets, and it has, so it's like a resource if that's how you want to start teaching your kids. So apparently I've just done a plug for that. So check out the Tuttle Twins. Didn't mean to. I was just mentioning it.
No, it's good. And I mean, like, you know, we've talked about Rush Limbaugh's books, the, you know, Rush and the Brave Pilgrims and stuff, that it's very important to have good historical information, good, you know, that getting it explained early on, so it's kind of a click in your head of, no, this is how this works. This is why we have these systems of government, or, you know, that the sort of idea of liberty. And I was reading this week, or I was listening to William Buckley's book, The Reagan I Knew. And it's very interesting. I really should know more about politics in the 80s than I do. So it's kind of a, you know, trying to get more traction in that area. Like, you know, I know a bit about Reagan and Thatcher and Buckley, but there's a lot of like little things that kind of get pushed by the wayside. But I thought it was interesting. There's a speech in here, and I may need a second to find it, because it was a really good line. It was here we go. Excuse me as I read. I didn't actually plan to do this, but the book is sitting there and I'm thinking about it. Sorry, thinking of the different things. But this was a speech. It was, sorry, that this was a speech given on the 30th anniversary of National Review. You know, when now National Review stinks, but that happens sometimes when your leader dies. The magazine stinks. Disney World has the same problem. We all know this to be true. But this was a speech given. Ronald Reagan was there at the 30th anniversary, and it was just after his second inauguration. Anyways, I again apologize for reading. But the speech is, "The blood of our fathers ran strong." So a year before the National Review was founded, I spent an evening with Whittaker Chambers, and he asked me, half provocatively, half seriously, what exactly it was that my prospective journal would seek to save. I trotted out a few platitudes of the sort one might expect from a 28-year-old fogey about virtues of free society. He wrestled with me by obtruding that dark historicism for which he had been renowned. "Don't you see," he said, "the West is doomed, so that any effort to save it is correspondingly doomed to failure." I dropped this ink stain on the bridal whiteness of this fleeting evening, only to acknowledge soberly that we are still a long way from establishing, for sure, that Whittaker Chambers was wrong. But that night, he challenged by his pessimism, I said to him that if it were so that Providence had rung up our license on liberty, stamping it as expired, the Republic deserved a journal that would argue the historical and moral cause that we ought to have survived. That, weighing the alternative, the culture of liberty deserves to survive, so that even if the worst were to happen, the journal which I hoped he would collaborate might serve, so to speak, as the diaries of Anne Frank had served, as absolute dispositive proof that she should have survived in place of her tormentors, who ultimately perished. In due course, the argument prevailed, and Chambers joined the staff. But anyways, I was thinking about that a lot, just because it is, you know, when in the 80s or before the 80s, 30 years prior, so 50s, there was such a despair for, you know, the West isn't going to make it. That, and again, the West may not still make it, but even with that, you need to make the argument that even you need to teach kids. You need to, you know, get out, you know, if someone hasn't heard the truth, you need to be the one who stands there and says it.
Right. Yep. And I don't know what publication you're talking about, honestly, but that's why we've got the Tuttle Twins now. And Laura said, in the comments that she got her son the Mike Huckabee magazine that talks about cancel culture, and there's still people that are trying to get this out there. All hope isn't lost. I mean, It might be, but we can keep trying.
Well, and also, you say with Buckley that, and some of this is culture shifts back and forth, but that is 30 years. That is 30 years from a 28-year-old, which 28-year-old starting a magazine as 30, arguing his ideas, going through. That is 30 years from the second term of Ronald Reagan, and he helped get Reagan in, and getting people together, laying a groundwork of explaining the argument clearly, reasonably, good policies, bad policies, why they are the way that they are. And that, was, again, something that helped Ronald Reagan go from liberalism to conservatism. It's something that Rush Limbaugh talked about, that when he was growing up, that he would read National Review and discuss it with his father. So an influence on him. And then, without William Buckley, again, speculation might have happened anyways, but there would be no alternate conservative media. That he was the guy who got the foot in the door, just like, and then we have Rush, who was the alternate voice on the radio, which, again, basic principles, straightforward, got people on the same page. You didn't have to totally agree with him to listen, but many did. And many said that that he is saying what I have thought before. It's resonated with them. And then Rush helped to influence people like Andrew Breitbart, which is another layer of new media. Also certainly helped Trump, that, again, laying the groundwork for Trump. So it's it doesn't really, and these are big figures, but it's like, well, what happens if I speak out? It's like, no, it may take a while, but 30 years of National Review, 30 years on the radio, it may take a while, but it's not necessarily a founded effort.
Yep.
30 years for Brexit. It's all.
Yep. That's funny. Yeah. So that's true. And it takes time, and they probably got a lot of flack in between for it, but what are you going to do? It is what it is.
Sorry, that was Molly. Yes, Molly.
Molly always has things to say.
That's right.
So, holy moly, I'm done today. Sorry, I keep yawning.
I know you've had a long week.
It's not you, it's me. For real. So, Anne, is there anything else that I've missed that I wasn't involved in the everything?
It's everything going on at once. But yeah, like I said, January 6th nonsense. Lots of Australian things. In France, Macron says that the unvaccinated are non-citizens, which is,
good.
Yeah, that's super charming. Andrew Neil, who didn't last a week at GB News, now says that everyone unvaccinated there ought to be punished. So again, charming fellow. But yeah, not always to get to the same thing. Actually, one of the creepiest stories for me this past week is that NASA is, and again, this is not a widely known story, and I should have sent you the article beforehand, is that NASA is getting together a government-funded commission of theologians for a religious perspective on aliens.
Okay, so I don't know about this story, but I have just spent a lot of time with my husband watching Ancient Aliens, and he seems to be pretty sure that there is an alien base in Antarctica, and I sometimes I just nod and agree. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Okay, so one big problem, one side problem. Okay, so my my personal view on aliens as a Christian, which is weird, but as a Christian, I believe in sentient beings of different undescribable varieties who are sometimes corporal and sometimes not. Answer, angels. But there's clearly distinctions in them, and they're not very clear sometimes. So I'm like, okay, so that tells me that on some level, there's some other intelligent life. And if we find intelligent life, I'm just going to go, God made it. Okay. And I don't understand it, but whatever. It wasn't in the manual, but okay. But that is totally unimportant. What freaks me out is that when the government funds any research, it's to get the answer they want. And
are you sure?
Yeah, because people who do that research want that sweet grant money. And yeah, that this is a huge problem. Also, what again bothersome to me, that people say separation of church and state. And there's the whole argument with that. Thomas Jefferson wrote it in a letter. It wasn't specifically law. It wasn't yeah, so it says, remember who the third of the angels are. Yeah, that angels and demons that made of the same stuff. But anyway, sorry, back. But that this is a lose my thought. Separation of church and state. Sorry. That the point is that the state can't interfere in the church. That you cannot mandate a religion. You cannot say the church has to say something. You can't do, you can't, the state ought not be able to interfere. And also, when there is a lot of theologians, and I would say right now we don't have the strongest bench, but maybe I just don't know some people. A lot of theologians haven't really thought and looked into the Bible deeply, done a lot of thought on aliens, okay? Because that sounds a little ridiculous. So if you're funding a group to get in the first word and the ground word on any potential subject that may come up in the future, I mean, it's like, that's really worrisome for me, because you're not necessarily getting what might be the best or the most insightful minds on a subject. You're getting the government funded minds on a subject. And
yes. Okay. So,
and in the end, it may all be nonsense anyways, but I'm like, no government funding in religion, no government funding in religious thought. That's very bad. Anyways.
No. But your point about government funding, my husband studied science. He does not practice it. He got an office job, unfortunately. But we talk about climate change all the time. And he's like, dude, if my grant funding counted on me saying what the government wanted, I would say what the government wanted. Like, and I feel that way about, climate change and all the COVID, because, dude, all these people are getting money from it. So, of course, I'm going to be like, dude, if I was making money hand over fist, I'd be like, yes, what do you want me to say? All right, I got it. Let's go. Because
right.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, it's all speculation, it's all whatever. But but yeah, with the government funding any subject, I'm like, I don't trust this. I don't know. No.
Dude, freaking most churches are messed up anyway nowadays. A couple weeks ago on Instagram, I posted the thing about the drag queen giving the sermon and reading children's stories to the kids in the church. So I think that I would. What was that?
Car went by. Sorry.
That was weird. But I just don't think I trust much of what most people say anymore. You gotta really. You don't have your critical thinking hat on.
Right, and that's kind of. I mean, definitely question everything. But I don't know that for me personally, it's like question everything, But whenever anyone gets into the category of trust nothing, they tend to trust really silly things. Like, well, I don't trust anybody. But it's like, but I'm also worried because there is so little trust right now in a lot of institutions, government, media. Like you said, there's a lot of churches that you no longer trust down the line, that it does leave the door open for something big, new, and wonderful coming in that will fix all of our problems. And yeah, will that be better than before? That you have to that you whenever something new and seemingly excellent comes in, that you have to distrust that as well. Like in New York right now, that the new district attorney, I always think, whenever I think of New York City, I think of superhero terms because that is most of my association with it. But I'm like, the new Harvey Dent is in town. And the laws are now that you don't go to jail for almost any crimes except murder and some sex crimes. And I'm just sitting there like, do you want to get Batman? Because this is how Dr. and Mrs. Wayne get murdered, or Uncle Ben, or anybody. And do you think that the sudden vigilantes that this is creating is going to be as kind and as justice and like Batman, who didn't kill people if he could help it? He gave them over to the police. So the justice system, do you think this is how people are going to run? Because this is a lot of needless death this is going to cause. This is a lot of suffering. This is a lot of pain. And then what are they going to do? Oh no, somebody should help us, like the government. And then jackbooted thugs. And look, there's no in between here. It's good and just for us to not prosecute anybody, or wait, we'll throw you in jail for anything. That there's not a lot of middle ground.
Yeah, there's well, the standards are really goofy because now here in New York, I mentioned it last week. I haven't heard more about it this week, but they're talking about if you're not vaccinated, that the governor can detain you. But then on the other hand, you're saying in New York that they're not going to prosecute most crimes and arrest people. And we're going to turn into Los Angeles. It's freaking, I don't have anything good to say about any of that.
No, it's, the bizarre, the sort of bizarre two-tiered justice system. And I was listening to James Golden, his radio show, also known as Bo Snerdley, that he was the guy who was the call screener and producer for Rush. But yeah, he was talking about it. And the whole, that if you are a prosecutor in New York City, that you have to consider the harm that this sentence may cause the criminal. That you have to, that, he might not get housing, he might not get a job, the potential racial discrimination that you may be showing him. Yes.
Don't commit crime. And then you don't have to worry about it.
That would definitely, consequences, actions. But yeah, and also it's like, so what about the harm that they caused the victim of the crime? Like, that is not in consideration. That is not, a lot of people throwing around the word justice, not a lot of justice being done.
So I relate a lot of my life to my parenting because that's the part of life I'm in right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so my kids will do something like punch another one, and then they get punished, and then they cry because they're punished. And and the problem with most people is that their parents didn't do this. They didn't say, hey, if you don't like sitting in your room by yourself, don't punch your sibling in the face, right? So because nobody is doing that kind of parenting anymore, then people are surprised when there are consequences out in the real world.
Right.
And now we have a whole generation who has no consequences and doesn't want to be punished. And so we're just not gonna run free, whatever. Like, there's just nonsense. Everybody needs to be spanked and sent to their room.
Right. And
sorry.
No, seriously. But also that here, switching the thought back to the people for January 6th, who, again, most of what they have been charged with is trespassing. that they're not charged with insurrection, that they have been charged for they have been jailed for trespassing, but they have been held for over a year, and the conditions are terrible. That that they haven't been allowed to have a shave or a haircut, that they're being denied, that some medical treatment isn't being done, that they can't have chapel services. Many of them are kept in solitary for a year for a minor offense.
So for trespassing, but then you can go to a place like Los Angeles and break into a store, and as long as you steal less than $1,000 worth of stuff, you're fine.
Right.
But really?
No. And look, I love the First Amendment and I love the Second Amendment. I'm massive fans, but I don't see a lot of t-shirts with speedy and just trial. And I'm really into that too. And, I thought the punishment came, after you're convicted. They've been held in a year. They've been serving time already. They've been pushing out dates. They've been, that cruel and unusual punishment, again, for minor crimes.
Yep. And I've heard, I don't know how true anything that we hear about it is, but they've been like brainwashed into seeing why they are so bad for doing this too. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, if I'm held in solitary and you keep telling me the same thing over and over, I guess after a while I'd be like, oh, I guess I must have been bad, right? Like, why am I here if I didn't do something wrong? So,
right. And after all, these are the most evil of all Trump supporters, and therefore they need to be punished. And a lot of these people did not have former convictions, okay? Trespassing without former convictions, and has often been said that you had the BLM riots, when people torched buildings, and vandalism and loss of life. And, Kamala Harris did a bail fund for them. That it's a two-tiered justice system, which is
not. It really is. Oh, man, it just kills me, and it really. What are we going to do? What's the solution?
Well, probably back to thing 2, education.
Yeah.
Talking it out.
But that's a generation from now. And look at what they're doing to our kids right now. They've got them in school, masks, social distance, brainwashing them that, everything is dirty and you're going to get sick and you're going to die and you're going to. I got nothing, for real.
Well, even as ridiculous and seemingly brainwashed people are, you can come to Jesus anytime. You can have, you can be awakened to the truth at any time in life.
Yeah. And I was reading something today that was saying, once you're red pilled, it's so hard. Like everything is, the light has shone on it, and it's so hard to go back to the way you were thinking. And I guess that's just what we have to hope for. But start with the kids. You got them. For reals. So is there anything else you wanted to mention or?
I don't think so. Basically, again, check out our sponsor, Chicken Lady Fiber Art, for beautiful yarn. Ooh, there we go. It comes into focus, and it's fabulous, and it's made in America, not by slave kids. So.
And what more can you ask for?
Exactly.
Non-slave labor yarn. Except that I think that sometimes she does enlist the help of family. So, slave labor?
But anyways, that again, our promo code is PIK January 20 for 20% off. Chicken Lady is in the comments celebrating. But yes, check out her yarn. She has new she calls them bouquets, but it's different mini skein yarns just in time for Valentine's Day.
I know. I wanted to talk to her about that because I have so many ideas, but I keep forgetting. Non-slave labor yarn. Yes, we know. I was just kidding. And anytime you get your kids or your spouse to help, that's not slave labor. That's just being part of the family.
Exactly.
Yeah, so check her out. And, you know, once again, if you want a non-woke book, make sure you check out our buddy Cody. Got the Odyssey Tale, which is an awesome fantasy adventure, and I still have to get around to reading the other book. I downloaded it onto my Kindle, and then I promptly got sick and decided that reading was too hard. So I'll work on that for you guys.
Though it is, you can get a physical copy and a Kindle edition and an audio edition. I believe he's just on Amazon for now, but he also has a website.
Yep. CodySchlegel.com. No, OdysseyTale.com. I'll double check that and I'll get back to you.
We'll put a link. We'll get
Odyssey Tale by Cody Schlegel. I'm sure you can find it.
Here we go.
I'm going to bed. I'm done for the day, guys.
All right. So again, check us out. YouTube, Rumble are the main ones. Instagram, Facebook. I just got on Getter this past week. I don't believe
I have to do that.
Chicken Lady, also in the chat, is she got on Getter. So there's You and Dye Yarns is on there. Liz Clother Designs. So we're trying to get the yarn people in Getter, so it's not just political posturing all day long. We need some good stuff too.
Right. Cool. So yeah, check us out, and if you want to know what I'm up to, I'm always on Instagram. I'm on Instagram too much, so sorry. But yeah, come find us. We will hopefully have a taped episode next week with professional editing and whatnot. It depends on how these shingles last and whatever. But I got on the antiviral 12 hours after I got the rash, so I'm in pretty good shape, which is pretty fabulous. But anyway, we will see you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye. Oops.